Hello guys and welcome to this Always on the Ball tips video. Last week I got 8 out of 9 tips, which I'm pretty happy with. I tipped a few upsets. Only tip I got wrong was Port Adelaide St Kilda. Unfortunately the Saints let me down. Anyways, let's get into this week. First up we have Carlton Brisbane, Friday night 7:50 Marble Stadium. This is probably game of the round. Fitting it's on Friday night. Sell out, I'm pretty sure. It's going to be close. Carlton have been a bit up and down. Great win last week, though, over West Coast. 108 points. Brisbane, they've had what you expected, a pretty good start to the season. But it's either way. Carlton are actually favourites, but if this was at the Gabba, Brisbane would be favourites. So I reckon that Brisbane win by 15, and Will Ashcroft has 15 touches and a goal, coming off a good game last week. Moving on to Richmond West Coast at the MCG, 1:45. This is not a very good game between 16th and 18th. So it doesn't look a very good game on paper, and I don't think it's any better not on paper. Then Richmond had a very underwhelming start to the season. After, you would think everyone's always like, Richmond might bounce back this year, and it looked possible, but they're 1 and set 5 so far. No, they had a draw they snatched, and then, they haven't done very well after that. West Coast, on the other hand, it was expected. They've got injuries, so it's not that surprising that they are where they are. But I have to tip Richmond. Surely they can't lose. My tip is Richmond by 11, with my big call that Liam Baker has 20 plus disposals. Moving on to the second Saturday afternoon game, Geelong Adelaide, 7th v 8th. Quite a good game, I reckon, on paper at least. Adelaide, coming off a loss to Collingwood, they put up a good fight. Goal kicking just let them down. Geelong, coming off 4 wins, good win over Essendon. Tom Hawkins kicked 8. As in, it's going to be hard to not tip the Cats. Adelaide, I can see them winning, but the Cats are definitely strong favourites, especially at GMHBA. Cats never lose at GMHBA, or hardly ever. I'm tipping the Cats by 37 points, with my big call being that Cameron and Hawkins combine for 5 plus goals. Moving on to the Saturday 4:35 game at Heritage Bank Stadium. Gold Coast, their season could be back on track. They're coming off 2 wins, North Melbourne and Richmond. Not the best of opponents, but Richmond, that's quite a good win away. And Richmond, well, actually, they're no good at marble, but Gold Coast, 13th. Most people thought they'd make finals. There's still a chance. If they drop this though, it's going to be tough to see them make finals. Melbourne, losses to Essendon and Brisbane. They started the season pretty well, sitting in second, 5 and 2. In this game, my tip is Melbourne by 51, with my Ollie's call being that Bailey French kicks 2 plus goals, given he's kicked, I think it's 35 games straight he's kicked a goal, and 15 out of the past 16 he's kicked 2 plus goals. Moving on to the Saturday night games. Manuka Oval, Canberra, 7:30 Saturday. This is going to be really interesting. I can see it going either way, like at most games this round. Especially being Canberra, GWS usually play pretty well in Canberra. So it's going to be pretty close. But it's going to be hard to tip against the Bulldogs after a couple of good wins. It's a bit of a rivalry going on here. It's quite a modern day rivalry. I reckon it's nearly bigger than GWS's Swans rivalry. Then again, after last week, who knows? The doggies, they're getting there. They're 4-3, sitting in 10th. My tip is the Bulldogs by 15, and my big call includes the 2 greens for GWS, combined for 40 plus disposals and 2 goals. Now think about it. My big call should have been that Toby Green gets suspended. But anyway, maybe I should do that when these sides play again. Moving on to the second Saturday night game. Quite another mediocre game. Fremantle-Hawthorn. Probably won't get many people there. Saturday night. Let's start with Fremantle, the home team. Not a great start to the season if you're a Fremantle supporter. Very disappointing. As in, they were predicted. Some people were predicting top 4. That hasn't happened. But they're still, you never know. They're still not out of finals, but they're gonna need not a miracle, but some good luck to make finals from here. On the other hand, Hawthorn, well, they were expected to, after losing a few players, they were expected to have a pretty bad season. And as I said last week, it's promising for Hawthorn supporters. Got some good young players. Unfortunately, they did not win last week. But, as in, you never know. They're looking alright. They put up 3.5 fight against the Bulldogs, and if it wasn't for inaccurate goal kicking in the first half, they might have put the game to bed, and then they might have won. Anyway, I can't tip against Fremantle at home. I'm tipping Fremantle by 13 with my big call that Caleb Sarong has 25 plus disposals. He's been so consistent. Moving on to the Sunday games. Port Adelaide, Essendon. It's going to be Adelaide over 110. It's going to be an interesting game. Port Adelaide, they've had a great 4 weeks. They had a pretty bad start of the season. People were doubting Jason Horne-Francis. He was getting booed, which he still is, but he's been playing well. He had an outstanding game last week. He had 5 plus clearances and I think 20 plus touches. Pretty good game. He probably won the game for them in the midfield battle. Port Adelaide sitting 5th, 5-2, going well. Essendon, they had a great start, 2 losses. They've lost to Geelong and Collingwood though, so you can cut a bit of slack for them. Essendon, I reckon they're still going to make finals. It's going to make it harder if they lose here, and unfortunately I think they're going to lose here by 17 points, with my big call that Connor Rosie and Jason Horne-Francis combined for 35 plus disposals and 2 goals. Moving on, the prelim final rematch. Hopefully Sydney treat this one like the prelim final rematch, like they did for the grand final rematch. Collingwood, moving on to the teams. Collingwood, 6-1, outstanding start. Lost to Brisbane at the Gabba. They didn't play too well that game, but that's one game. 6-1, only team 6-1, game clear. They've had a great start. Sydney, bit of a grand final hangover. They're 3-4, 11th. They got smashed by Geelong, as I mentioned in last week's tipping video, and against GWS wasn't a great game. GWS not very good this year, but they lost to GWS by a point. It was a pretty good game, but that's disappointing. I can't see Sydney winning. I'm tipping Collingwood by 19 in a bit of a close game, but because they're Collingwood, my big call, Ollie's call, is that Collingwood are behind at any stage in the second half, given that they love to come from behind or choke a lead up. They are Collingwood, they love to choke. Moving on to the final game. And it's going to be interesting. Bit of a danger game for the Saints, my team. North Melbourne, last week, they were no good. There was 109 points and they kicked the last 3 goals to make it 90. So it was going to be like 30 to 150 if they didn't kick those goals. First quarter, they were terrible. 50-6 at quarter time. They were no good. They had a great start to the season, everyone was up and about, and then it's just gone from bad to worse. I reckon them, Hawthorn and West Coast are battling for the wooden spoon at the moment. Also, let's move on. St Kilda. Yeah, as in, they're 5-2, sitting third, a lot better than I expected, and they've had 2 close losses, as in, at least they tried and put up a good fight against Port Adelaide, and once they were behind, just didn't give up and say, "Oh, we've lost." So it was an okay performance. As in, Port Adelaide are playing pretty good footy right now. I can't see St Kilda losing. Well, I can, but something would have to go wrong. I'm tipping the Saints by 35 with my big call that Jack Steele is in the coach's votes. Thanks for watching this Ollie's on the Ball tips video. Hope to see you next time.